My hair look okay?
Yes. Oh yeah.
Cheers.
Salud. I'll give you your wine back.
Maybe I don't need it back at this
Yeah,
point.
you do. Because here, look at me. You got like here, close your eye. I got it. You just had like a little mascara spot, but it looked like
you had.
You want to intro it?
No.
Hi, and welcome to an extra bonus episode of Get Lit and Knit. I'm Allie,
I'm Abby.
and we are Get Lit and Knit on Instagram and Ravelry. Finally, we have another half. She exists. I have friends. So that's where you can find us, and you can find our, I think it's Get Lit and Knit podcast on Ravelry. We put out, Wednesday or something, a Q&A, and so that's what we're going to do for you today. There will be some yarny stuff. There will be a fair amount of drinking. And we're going to go over some mail, too. So let's get into it. Actually, this is going to knock out one of our questions from Robin at the Stitching Between Pages podcast, who's local to us. She asked where we got the mugs from. This is from Traveling Tree Designs on Etsy. I think we just kind of searched around and you found this, right?
Yeah, there are a bunch of options, a bunch of different fonts and different mugs and wine glasses and coffee cups and traveling mugs, but we settled on this one. We liked how they looked and that they were customizable, so Allie could get her bourbon mug as well, which made her very happy.
Yes. So. And we also liked that they were like $13 a pop, yes. So there's that. All right, cool. All right, so we wanted to start with a very generous gift from one of our friends on Ravelry and a group member, maybe. Tanya from Minnesota doesn't have an Etsy shop, just makes these for fun and enjoyed what we were doing and wanted to send us, we'll stick a better picture in here, but she sent us beer progress keepers, like just as a thank you. And so I sent her some minis and the standard stuff back, but these are just, this is too good.
They're adorable. There's little bottle openers and beer can top and little 6-pack, so definitely on theme, and we will be using these a lot.
And she also gifted us some to give to you guys. So that said, once we hit 300 subscribers, and we're well on the way, we will do a giveaway. I think we've got enough to do an Instagram and a Ravelry group giveaway, so we'll keep you posted on that. All right, we're going to move on to our first swap ever. So Melissa, the Spicy Homemaker, you all know her, messaged us randomly and said I would totally swap with you. And she had talked about like how these can be a little intimidating and you have like a little bit of a first date feeling, like you don't want to screw it up. So she sent us like, you all know she's generous, but this was just like next level. Like, I'm glad I didn't open it on screen because I like almost lost it. So we're gonna go through the minis real quick and then just a few of the extras. We're not gonna go through the whole thing, but we sent stuff back to her too and hope she likes it. I heard back from her and I'm sure she does. All right, so let's start with the yarn.
All right, so she sent us 6 mini skeins and we each got one of the mini skeins, so that'll be really fun to add to our beekeeper's quilt. So this one is Zia Wool Sandia based in Fire and Ice.
We'll stick in pictures of all of this.
Okay. And then we have the Koigu KPPM in this beautiful blue purple color. And then another purple based one is the Malbrigo in Violetta Africana.
And then we've got, I think this is another Koigu KPM, and I don't think they named their colorways. It just says, is that 7 grams or 79? I don't know. This one is Melissa's custom colorway through Bohemia Fibers. I did the 5 gram Bohemia Fibers mini skein swap, and this is La Dolce Vita. And from what I understand, this is the custom colorway that she's doing in all her swaps now. And this has like, I think 7 different colors in this. It's really nice. Beautiful. And then the last one is one that we're going to split. It is from the Space Cadets Mini Skein Club, and it's in the Aurora colorway. So you want to talk about the extras?
Yeah, so she sent us these little pecan pie shots. I think it's whiskey, so that'll be a fun adventure at some point soon.
Later tonight when we're making our swamps.
Probably. And then she sent us these cute little notepads. So we each got one of those. It's good for us busy students to keep all of our to-do lists written
Not a
down.
student yet, but
Soon to be.
Feels like it.
And then just in time for St. Patrick's Day, these funny, cute beer socks. So those will be fun and festive. It's a big deal here in Chicago. They dye the river green, and people get a little crazy, but it's always a fun.
That's putting
holiday.
It generously.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's everything. So thanks again, Melissa, for being a great first swap partner. Did you read through the messages? We share the account, so she was like, "You have been blessed. Go forth and swap." So maybe we could start. I know Brittany over at Sip and Stitch is doing. We're all doing the knitting games together. Has started a swap in her group, so maybe that's something we can talk about doing down the line.
Definitely.
So this is as good a time as any to remind you guys that we are making Swants as a podcaster challenge for the knitting games. Insert Katniss whistle here. Was it Rue's whistle? It's been a while. All right, so we are making Swants with Melissa from Spicy Homemaker, Brittany at Sip and Stitch, Gabby at Once Upon a Corgi, and we are each making our own pair of Swants, so that makes 5. So the rules for the knitting games, because there's knit along and different challenges, and there's a trivia Powerball that they just started. That's all going to be in Melissa and Brittany's group. So for the Swants specifically, we each make a pair of Stephen West sweater pants. I didn't know what this was until recently either, but Google it, do yourself a favor. And so we're gonna each make a pair of Swants. It's gonna be a totally blind vote. We'll each post a picture. The thread with those pictures will be in our group and in Gabby of Once Upon a Corgi's group. So that opens March 11th, and you just go and hit love on your favorite pair of Swants, and we'll tally that all up, and whoever Swants wins gets a prize package to give to their viewers. So make sure you're subscribed to all of us and following us on Instagram, and that's kind of the best way to keep up with that, and that way you'll know when the thread goes live. And we are a little behind the 8 ball, although from what I understand, nobody else has started making their Swants except Gabby either. I was messaging her about sewing stuff because I know nothing. But we did go shopping today.
We did. Now that I'm on spring break and I have a little bit of time on my hands, we went down to Boys Town in Chicago. They have a bunch of awesome secondhand stores and just crazy vintage type shopping, and we dug through the piles and piles of sweaters and found what we think are 2 really awesome, fun, definitely ugly sweaters to make into our Swants. So we're really excited to start cutting those up and getting to the sewing, and we'll see how it goes. We're not totally sure. It's kind of a new uncharted waters, but we're looking forward to it. I think it'll be really fun.
Yeah, we're gonna make the test pair tonight, and then each make our own, because we're only about a half, an inch or so, shorter, taller than each other. I'm just a little bit taller, so hopefully if we can figure out the one pair, we can figure out both our real pairs. Thank you.
All right, well, since I'm here this week, I figured I would share with you in person some of my updates. They've been somewhat slow to come. School's been crazy, to say the least, but I try to sneak in a little bit of knitting here and there. I'm trying desperately to finish this hat for Nicole at Hugh Loco. I feel so bad it's taken me forever, but it should be done in the next day or two, so it's been so much fun knitting this hat. So this is the tour hat, knit with the Maeve Base 100% Superwash Merino in her Whiskey Barrel color. It's so soft, and the color has so many tones to it. Like Allie's mentioned before, every light that you go in, you see different hues and different tones, which has been a lot of fun to work with. I'm almost done with the pattern portion itself, and then I'll be on the decreases. It's a little bit hard to see, but there is a nice little lace in there. So hopefully we'll get a finished product picture up soon. And then I've also been working on, this is more for when I need a little de-stress and mindless knitting, since at this point I'm on the rib and it's just knit 2, purl 2. There's not much thinking required. But this is the sock head hat that Allie's knit, and I saw her finished product and was inspired to knit with this gorgeous red yarn that Allie's also talked about. So slow but surely I'm making progress. It surprised me because I didn't realize it was going to be self-striping, but it has. This blue is kind of going to be apparently wrapping itself around the hat, which I think will be really fun in the end. So this is my TV knitting on the weekends when I have a couple spare minutes. And I think Allie's got her finished product here.
Yeah, so we just had a snafu with this. So I knit this in the in Araucania, the one that I make everything else in. This is the Sea Flower colorway. I got on the project pages to look for modifications that would make it slouchier. It's a free pattern, I'm pretty sure. Just knit some extra rib and a little bit of extra body. And as Abby was looking at it, we figured out somehow I managed to drop a stitch and pick it back up. So Tanya, you saved the day because we had to like stick
emergency surgery.
Seriously, like stuck one of the Beer Progress Keepers in it to save it. But once I fixed that, like, I don't know, I'm happy with how it turned out. Just haven't worn it a ton.
Hasn't been cold enough around here.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. All right, cool. And then did you want to talk about the cowl too?
Sure, yeah. So this cowl, again, kind of like, unlike the sock head hat, requires a lot of thinking and a lot of paying attention. And I've realized after several times of having to frog several rows, knitting at 11 o'clock after a 12-hour day of studying is not the way to do this project. I've texted Allie in panics about where I dropped a stitch or forgot to do a yarn over. And so I've realized I need to be 100% fully focused and slept before I work on this. So this is going to be worked on over spring break, but it's not a relaxed, mindless kind of knit like the sock head hat is.
Do you remember any of the info on the pattern or anything? I think I do.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so this is we've talked about this before. This is the Adama cowl by Hilary Smith Callis. And I made this one in white, and once it blocks out, I didn't do much blocking on it, to be honest, but there's like definitely a snowflake motif in here. At least that's what it looks like to me. The way the it's not even a cable, like, I don't know, just the way some of the one stitch lines are raised. So it's funny too, because as you were talking, I was thinking about this. This goes like easy, medium, difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm excited to see how that one gets a lot easier once you join it in the round, and stitch markers are definitely your friend on that one.
Yes. So I'm excited to use those beer stitch markers and get working on this again when I have a little bit less hectic school schedule going on.
So like today.
Yes. It'll probably be worked on tonight for sure.
All right, so we're going to move on to the promised Q&A section. We put out a few posts on Instagram begging for questions, and we got a few back. So we'll start with those. Devin of Francophile Knits is an angel and sent us 4. So let's start with those.
All right, so her first question is, what are your favorite drinks for getting lit while knitting?
I feel like that depends on the project.
like I said before, you don't want to be too distracted if you're working on something super intricate.
Right. Like the sock head hat, like I was working on this while drinking like a vodka mixed drink at the Star Wars premiere. So if it's like 2x2 ribbon stockinette, like that's fine. But otherwise, I gotta keep it to something a little softer.
I'm always one for beer or wine, especially on a Friday night or Saturday night after a long week of school and just want to, like Allie said, relax and do an easy project. Those are definitely some of my go-tos, but trying to think. Some Chicago-based alcohol that we enjoy. I love the Revolution Brewing Company here in Chicago. They make some really, really great beers of all sorts. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah, especially if you're here over the summer, there's a hibiscus ale that's like super seasonal. And they'll have it in Target and I'll like freak out and buy 3 packs. Like, I can't even carry it, but like.
And they do a great brewery tour too as well.
They give you like a 16 ounce while you walk through. It's the best. Yeah, and Chicago is great for brewery and distillery tours like that. I know Lagunitas is not like strictly a local brand. I think it's
actually from where I'm from in Northern California, kind of the Sonoma area, which is more known for its wine, but Lagunitas is a great brewery as well. They make a lot of just interesting brews and fan favorites for sure. And they recently opened a Chicago brewery as well, and that's been huge around here. Again, great brewery tour as well.
And that's down in Pilsen, off the Pink Line. If you're brave enough to take the Pink Line, I'm not. And then if you're looking for a distillery tour, the only one I know off the top of my head is Koval, and that's in Evanston. But they make one of my favorite whiskeys, and they do, I think, vodka and gin too. All right, Devin also asked us about the best and worst places to knit in public in Chicago. I think we got to give Metropolis a shout out here.
Yeah, so Metropolis is a tiny little, I guess it's not tiny. So they have one brick and mortar kind of coffee shop itself where you can go in, and it's one of my favorites. I used to study there all the time in undergrad.
We spent a lot of time in undergrad there and a lot of money.
But they roast their own coffee, and they actually distribute it across the city. So a lot of smaller different coffee shops will brew Metropolis coffee, but it kind of has this hippie indie vibe to it, which is really fun. And there's always an eclectic group of people. It's great for people watching. And they make some of the best pastries around. But that's always a fun place to knit. Especially in the summer, you can sit out on the sidewalk as well.
Yeah. I think we have a creepy story with that one. You remember that guy?
Oh, yeah.
God. There is one guy at Metropolis who's, well, there's a few, but there's one that's like a notorious, just like, no boundaries. I'm a stare at you, whether you like it or not. And we're sitting knitting one day. I think was that over the summer?
It was.
Okay.
It was just hot out.
And he was just like leering at Abby, and I'm sitting across like, I don't know what to do about this. And there's a table of guys, like 3 guys right next to it. And I was like, you're not going to do anything about this? Like, I think we said something too, but
I was oblivious for a while, but just because I couldn't see him, it was pretty uncomfortable.
And I'm like hypervigilant anyway, so I was like,
yeah. And that's also the place right after I finished my sweater, which maybe we'll throw a picture up of, that I finished maybe 2 years ago. I wore it for the first time, and I went and grabbed a coffee, and I was going out somewhere else. And within 10 minutes of leaving the house, someone in Metropolis commented, "That's a beautiful sweater. Did you make it?" And I was like, "Actually, I did. Thanks for noticing."
It's that kind of place. Like,
yeah.
I'm at the point with the baristas where, like, I don't remember their names, but I know all about their grad programs. Like,
and they know all of our names and what we're up to. And
yeah, it's
great.
Yeah. Worst place to knit in Chicago. I feel like the CTA, like the train, can be either the best or the worst.
That's what I was going to say, for sure.
Like, the train is part of the reason that I've converted to Magic Loop, because I can't even tell you how many times I've, like, lost a DPN, just, and
you wouldn't want to pick it up once it fell anyway.
No, and it'll, like, roll. I don't know. It's just a disaster. I was working on the Beekeeper's quilt, and I have double-pointed, like, 40-inch stainless steel needles, and it, like, almost fell. And I was like, it was the end of the world, because especially in the winter, it's super gross.
Disgusting.
But if you're going to be on it for a while, like I am, all the time, it's a good place to settle in and do it. I know Jenny from Tiny Paper Foxes talks about being a commuter knitter, and that's definitely where the lion's share of my knitting gets done.
I think it also depends on what kind of seat you can get on the CTA and who's sitting next to you and how wide they are and where your elbows go and all that sort of stuff.
Well, yeah, because they redesigned the CTA to be like the MTA, where it used to be kind of set up horizontal, like 2-seater benches, and now they're vertical against the wall. There's more spots to stand, but the seats are not wide enough for your average human, especially with a coat on. Like, I barely fit. It's not even... I hate, like, knocking into people or even, like, other people touching me. So you're, like, sitting, like, folded into yourself the entire time.
Yeah.
So.
And one thing that I don't know if you ever did this one in college, but a couple of my classes I would knit in class, actually.
Yeah, we did that in honors lecture.
Yeah. And there was one class I was taking for our honors program that was like a science and society. So it was really supposed to be sciencey, but for someone who was doing a more science-directed program.
We'll get to our majors in a second.
Yeah, it was really broad and somewhat less capturing of my motivation.
It was written for non-science people, which makes no sense because half the honors program is pre-med kids.
Right. So. And it was 8:00 in the morning, and I asked the professor if it'd be okay if I knitted, and he said, sure, no problem. But it was the only way I could stay focused in that class. And I think I knit that hippo in that class.
Oh, yeah. We'll put the picture up.
Well, then we had a guest lecturer who I ended up joining his research lab. And in my med school recommendation, apparently he wrote about how I knit in class. He thought it was disrespectful until I asked one of the most astute questions from the lecture.
Yeah,
so all my med school interviewers were like, "Oh, so you knit?" And I was like, "Wait, how do you know this?"
You know, I'm gonna drop that in that law school interview. It's like already on my mind map. Yep. Yeah, I think there's like this idea that you can't focus on 2 things at once, and like, I don't know, I know I focus better when I'm not just like sitting trying to focus. I don't know. I thought maybe it was just like because I have an attention deficit, but I guess it works for like.
Well, even just moving, like having your hands doing something. And,
Yeah, and you could, I don't know, especially with like your science professors, you could argue that it's good for you too.
Yeah.
Like,
pull a research paper out and
what's up, Ellie? So when we were trying to brainstorm like what filler questions we could ask, I figured talking about our majors would make sense. And since we're there, we'll go over that. I feel like both of our responses are going to be long.
Very complicated.
Do you want to start?
Sure. So going even all the way back to preschool, my parents I'm originally from San Francisco, and I actually growing up went to an international French school, K through 8th, and then went to an American high school.
That was Lycée, right?
The Lycée.
Lycée. See? I took Spanish and Arabic.
Right. So I went there through 8th grade, went to an American high school, took the French APs, and I knew that for sure I wanted to do French in college, even though I was 100% set on being pre-med and doing all the science courses as well. So coming in with some of my AP credits, I was able to do both, and in the end, it ended up being really great to have a balance between the kind of hard sciences, chemistry lab, memorize this formula, with being able to read like real literature and think and write papers and, keep my language skills up in French, among other language courses that I took in college. So
yeah, being trilingual is probably a fun thing to stick on the med school application.
Yeah. So I was able to get a bio minor with a French major and do all the prereqs for medical school with all the biochemistry and psychology and stuff like that. So that's kind of my story.
And my major, so this gets a little weird. We started out at the same university, and I transferred after a year and some change and stayed in Chicago. They're about a half hour apart. I didn't really realize how many universities were here until I got here, because I grew up like an hour and some change away. But I started, we met in the same honors program because they thought it would be a good idea to shove all the hyper anxious competitive honors kids in one dorm. What could go wrong? So
we came out sort of okay.
Yeah, after we left. So
but we were like 5 rooms
doors down, something like that. Yeah. We'll get into that in a little bit, because I think it's going to take me a bit to remember the exact circumstances. So I started as a philosophy major, and then at the coaxing of that same professor. So my advisor said, like, you'd have an easier time if you switched to political science, right? And I was like, all right, sure. Switched, and then switched universities the next year and decided I wanted to practice international law, which is really not a thing, but I became an international studies major, and you get to really specialize that, which is part of what I really liked, getting like a lot of control over my research. So I specialized in, and this is the long-winded dumb thing that sounds like nonsense, it was comparative urban development in Latin America and the Middle East. And basically it was like me and my advisor sitting down, like, how can we synthesize all the weird crap you've taken over the last 2.5 years? But I took Spanish and Arabic and like urban development courses, a lot of stuff with gentrification and poverty, and specifically studying the city of Chicago, which is kind of how I landed the job I have now. So, I don't know. Can't really get more opposite, I don't think.
Yeah, no, probably not. But I always learned something from her, and she, learned something from me.
Definitely. I mean, we just learned about how to track your moles. So we have one more Chicago-related question, and then we'll move back to the Yarny stuff. Devin asked us what our favorite Chicago pizza was.
This is highly contentious.
Yes.
Like, very divisive.
It's also not pizza. Like, it's a different food. Like, I think that's where a lot of, like, the theological debate about pizza comes down to. And, like, I'm from upstate New York, and, like, it's just a separate food. It's fine. And, like, you studied abroad in Italy. Like, it's not pizza.
No.
So, if we're talking about deep dish, I think my favorite is Pequod's. It's, like, a small, like, a more local one. I think in Lincoln Park. But it did make Food Network magazine for best pizza. So, however you feel about it, I guess Food Network feels some type of way too.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have too much of like a huge diehard preference. I do really like Lou Malnati's. They have kind of this cornmeal crust that I think is really great. But then again, I feel like I don't explore the deep dish quite as often as
I
should as a Chicagoan. It's very indulgent. It's you have one slice and it's about as thick as maybe 5 thin pizzas stacked together, and it's a lot of cheese, but it is delicious.
I tend to only get it if somebody's visiting and they really want to go. But yeah, cool.
All right, so we've got one last question from Devin, who asked us, do we have a favorite yarn brand or fiber content that we prefer to knit with?
Mm-hmm. I think you had a firmer answer than I did.
Yeah, so well, my initial thought was the Madeline Tosh, any of the Madeline Tosh. This is actually what I knit my sweater out of, which I talked about earlier.
There's a story there, though.
There is a story there.
I think we talked about this on Instagram, but it was a while ago.
Briefly, yep. So maybe, what was it, 2 or 3 years ago, I started this sweater, which I'll post the information once I get to it in the editing. But I found this sweater that I fell in love with, and I went to my local yarn store back in California and found the Madeline Tosh in jade, which is something that I'm never going to forget since I've searched about.
Well, it was Tosh Vintage, right?
Tosh Vintage in the jade color. So it's this really beautiful deep green. It has it's vibrant and has a lot of shades to it, which I really like. So I knitted over the summer, and I had bought what I assumed to be enough yarn, and I get to, I think, pretty close to the end, and it was kind of the same thing with Allie playing chicken on her doodler shawl, and was trying to gauge how much I had and wasn't sure if I was going to be able to make it. And so I'm like, oh, no big deal. I'll just run over to a yarn store and look for it. No, they make them in batches, and I called every yarn store in Chicago, almost every yarn store in all of the suburbs of Chicago. I called my original yarn store back in California. They didn't have it.
We had your mom hunting too.
So we ended up finding it at one yarn store. I was maybe 5 miles from my house back home. My mom went there. She's like, I'm just going to buy you 2 skeins because I don't want to have to do this over again. I'm so stressed for you. You're so stressed. So now I have extra leftover Madeline Tosh, but it is near and dear to my heart. And I love the fact that every time I pick up that sweater to put it on, I look at the yarn and think, I love this color.
Yeah, and that's a wear forever because it's a super classic shape.
For sure. So, and I know you knit with Madeline Tosh recently, but any favorites on your end?
I loved, because I used Tosh Vintage and ink for the quadri hat, and my only hang up was I only learned recently that you can do like a citric acid bath with your yarn before you knit it to seal in the color. I guess we got to talk about YarnCon.
Yeah.
To like seal it in before you wash it. And I didn't know, and it didn't fade, like it looks great, but the water was like fluorescent. So I'm just glad I washed it like by hand and by itself. But I think, I don't know, I tend to go through phases, and hopefully like the Araucania phase is running out because I'm almost out of yarn. Like I'll show you, my stash is pretty tiny. Like that's half the fun of swaps, and like I sent Tanya mini skeins back is just to clean house so I can buy new stuff. I actually, and this is not a plug, genuinely, like I redid the Hue Loco test knit to like kind of try before you buy, and I love what like the gray that I used for her socks was called Coltrane, and she I think had 1 skein, and I was like, can you list that? She put it up and I bought it like immediately. So I loved that, and I'm coming around to superwash merino nylon blends just for the hard wear because I walk a ton and my socks kind of take a beating. So, and I love the Sweet Georgia minis that we bought too for the Beekeeper's Quilt.
Great.
The Party of 5 Tough Love sock that I used for the doodler too. But I signed up for I did break down and sign up for the Fiberista Sock Club. So hopefully knowing that something is coming will stop me from buying.
Yeah.
Hopefully. I've kind of given up on the yarn diet, but I don't know. It's so low and everything's got a designated project, so.
That's I feel like that's the first step, is figuring out what you're going to do with each yarn. And my stash is too big right now, and the pace that I'm knitting, it's going to take me 5 years to finish.
Well, you could talk about, there's a reason, like you were running the knitting club. You had a lot of donations that way.
Right, and so at Loyola undergrad, I picked up the leadership at the knitting club there, and we worked on both teaching students how to knit, and we had a pretty loyal following of people who'd come to our weekly meetings, and we did one project that Emily and I worked on.
Oh, that community blanket?
Our good friend Emily, where we had people knit squares, which was a very doable thing for any level, and some people put stripes and different patterns within those squares, but then we sewed all the squares together to make kind of a community blanket, which was pretty fun.
Did you end up sending that somewhere, or
No.
that's real? Do you have it?
I do have it. We decided it would be more like a Sisterhood of the Traveling Blanket type thing, but we tried to find someone to donate it to, but like none of the shelter houses wanted it. I think they have a problem with like community blankets.
I mean, we can look, because I have like that Knitting for Peace book. I know that like the Geeky Girls podcast does like a charity knit thing, so maybe we can look there too and figure out what to do with it, because it's done, right?
Yeah, it's not huge, but it'd be like a baby blanket. It'd be a good
I wonder if Project Linus would take it.
Maybe
they make like security blankets for foster kids. I hope that's still a thing. I should find out.
Yeah, we just never got around to finding a good home for it. So
college is hard.
Yeah. Yep. But I do have some projects. When we went on our little yarn shopping spree, I got some, what was the blue yarn that we got?
Oh, that was, oh God, I have the ball band.
JoJo Land Yarns.
There it is.
I don't know what the colorway is, but...
You just said, I think it said powder blue.
No.
Oh, for the pink. Got it. Yeah, I don't remember at all. You bought a lot of pink that day.
I did.
All right. And because I asked him, Patrick sent us a question too. He asked what your favorite thing is to listen to or watch while we knit. I think our answers are fairly similar.
Probably.
Because I think we both immediately were like, Bob's Burgers. For sure.
We love Bob's Burgers. Allie introduced me, and I don't know who introduced you, but...
I remember. Yeah, I remember. All right, so we both watch Bob's Burgers. I'm a sucker for adult cartoons that aren't Family Guy or American Dad. So I love Rick and Morty. If you're a sci-fi fan at all, this is getting even more niche, but if you're into Welcome to Night Vale, you will love Rick and Morty. It's like that, except less scary, more funny, and it goes from really smart to really stupid, like kind of oscillates pretty violently. So if you can enjoy both of those things, it's really good. And are you still working through House of Cards, or?
Well, House of Cards season 4 just came out on Netflix last night, so that's kind of where my spring break is probably going to be going to. Hopefully I'm going to spend more time outside doing fun things, but in the evenings I will probably be watching that. It's kind of a cult following at this point. But
where are you going on vacation? Because I couldn't remember last time.
So I have like 10 days off, which is really nice, and we had a test yesterday, so I really have 10 days off with nothing hanging over my head, nothing to get caught up on. So on Tuesday, or I guess probably most of Wednesday through Saturday, I'll be in Charleston, North Carolina, or South Carolina. Charleston, South Carolina. Should I start that over? That sounds really dumb.
You're gonna follow us with like torches and pitchforks on Instagram.
Yeah, so I'll be there. My parents' best friend's daughter, who's basically my sister, lives there.
I was following got it. Okay.
Got it?
Yes.
Yeah. So she's a second year resident, so she's technically a doctor in her residency program out there. So I'll mostly be doing sightseeing, touristy stuff, hanging out, knitting, relaxing, maybe reading a book for fun. I think it's going to be like 75 every day, which will be lovely. But I'll be around Chicago for another couple days before I jet off over that way.
That'll be fun.
Yeah.
You want to talk about how we met? It was your joke.
Okay, so make me sound like a terrible person.
No, it was great. Tell the story.
So like Allie mentioned before, we were in the same honors program, and your first year at our university, within our honors program, they basically like, it's a cult, and they make you take all these classes together, and you don't have any other friends other than people in this program.
It's like the same 150 people, which is maybe half of my high school graduating class. Like, It was small.
It was really small, and we were on the same high-intensity classes over the course of a week, so we didn't see anybody else. But one of the classes, which was actually pretty low-key for the most part, was this University 101 class, and they made us do all these busy work projects about, like, getting to know Chicago, and they try to I don't know, introduce you to city life and getting around on the train and stuff like that.
They never did that with us, though, did they?
No.
Because
well, they hold your hand at orientation.
Right. Yeah. No. Because I know at DePaul, the like Explore DePaul class, I watched them take a group like physically to the Fullerton station to teach them how the CTA worked.
That's something that you need to like figure out on your own as an adult.
I wish somebody had explained the map to me, because when I moved to the city, I didn't have a smartphone, so I got lost all the time.
It was my sense of direction.
It was, but if I was alone, I was screwed.
You would have ended up in, South Side Chicago.
I would have ended up at my grandparents' house.
Or worse. So anyways, we were in this class together, and they made us, each group, we had to pair off with all these random first years that we didn't know, and do these neighborhood exploration projects. And so Allie and I paired up, and we were with these two other girls, and we went to Boys Town, which, I don't know, how would you describe Boys Town?
It's like, it is a really eclectic mix of super vintage, super high end, and then you throw in about 4 or 5 ramen places. Like, it's just a very eclectic North Side neighborhood.
With really good food options.
Mm-hmm. Also very expensive to live there, but definitely fun to visit.
Yeah. So we had to go and look at all these different things and come up with a couple of restaurants and coffee shops and talk about the history of the neighborhood and make this PowerPoint presentation. So the 4 of us went to this place. The other 2 girls like cut out early halfway through.
Well, because we did a tour of Center on Halsted, which is the LGBTQ plus community center there, and that was a really cool building. It was like brand new. And we toured it, and they were like, nah, we're going to go.
Yeah. So they left, and we finished going around the neighborhood, getting all the information and visiting some coffee shops, and started making this PowerPoint. And the other 2 girls did not carry their weight in terms of the project. And
they contributed, but it wasn't anything that we could keep. Like, there was some ignorant crap in there that we had to cut out. And because I was pissed and petty enough about it, I was like, we're going to cut it, and we're just not going to tell them. Because they weren't communicating with us either. And so I was like, we're just going to cut it. And she stumbled hard during that presentation.
And this is all for a pastel class, mind you.
Right. I'll do that in a graded class too. Yep. If you're not going to pull your weight, I'll throw you right under the bus.
So we had worked together, and then we were sitting there during all these presentations, and people are, talking about, I don't know, I think they were talking about Chinatown.
They were talking about
Chinatown in Chicago, and it's these 4 guys who were up there like, oh yeah, Chinatown, like we went to this restaurant and whatever, and then they were like, just beware, should I tell the joke?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so they were talking about the demographics of Chinatown and kind of the boundaries and sort of where it is touristy and then where it becomes not touristy, and one of them goes, yeah, the further down you get, the further down you go, the shadier it gets. And I just casually turned to Allie and go, that's what she said.
And up to this point, Abby had been just like this super nice, clean-cut kid, and I was just like not expecting it. I was like, I like you.
Well, you almost died.
I did. Well, because I'm like the queen of inappropriate laughter. Like, if I start giggling, it's over. And this was only a class of 30 people. There was no hiding.
Yeah, and we were like circle style sitting, and I think after that it was history. We've been best friends ever since. So.
Oh, God, yeah.
That class. That was an interesting one.
And for the record, Chinatown is fine.
Yeah. These are people coming from very safe, wealthy, well-kept suburbs of various cities across the United States.
Yeah.
So, that was that.
All
Welcome to my inappropriate mind every once in a while. Not everyone is privileged to see that.
It's funnier because like you don't expect it, and it's well played. I have one setting. Want to move on to favorite college memories?
Sure,
I'll tell the Snack Master story.
Yes.
All right. So one of the get to know you activities they had in the honors cult building we lived in was a scavenger hunt. So you had to go into, like, you had a group of 5, and each person you, like, go into your rooms. I swear to God, this was just practice on how to unlock your door. To, like, find something blue, find somebody who has a movie poster, that kind of thing. And we do that, and, like, that's fun, and we all get back, and I didn't think of this. Maybe they were, like, were they looking for contraband? Because that was the discussion they had immediately after we did that scavenger hunt, was... No. So we get back, and they're setting the rules, like you can't have a hamster, you can't have a hot plate, that kind of thing. And
no waterbeds, no
Yeah.
George Foreman grill.
stuff you wouldn't even think of, except the George Foreman grill. I technically was not supposed to have the little cutting board and paring knife that I had. I'm like, I just want to cut up an apple. Like,
Yeah.
what am I going to do? So we get back and our RA goes through the list and says, okay, are there any questions? And this girl out of nowhere raises her hand and she's like, well,
Like, very eagerly.
yes. She's like, what about a snack master? We're all looking at each other like, the snack master. And the RA was like,
What's a snack master?
well, yeah, she's like the nicest person, and she's like, can you tell me what that is? And she's like, I don't remember how it goes from there, but we looked it up after the fact. It's a food dehydrator. I'm like, are you making like dried fruit and like beef jerky in your dorm? I don't know if she was allowed to keep it or not, but
she became a snack master girl ever since.
Yeah, like years later. This was in like 2010, and like I still have we still have trouble remembering her real name.
Yeah,
poor kid. All right,
Yeah.
did you settle on one to talk about?
Not really. I think we've covered some of the top,
the majors,
the top ones for sure.
Do you have like a short one?
Let's see. Well, it was very exciting for me my freshman year because I got my first ever snow day, and it was Loyola's first snow day in like 47 years or something crazy. We had snowpocalypse in February 2011. I think it snowed like 3 feet or something, and they canceled school. And then the next day, most professors had to cancel class because all the roads were still not cleared, especially out in the suburbs. But so all the other colleges around Chicago had been canceling, and the next one would cancel, and then Northwestern would cancel, and this high school and that high school.
We were like sitting in front of Facebook and like LEC email, like with bated breath. Waiting.
And the minute we got the email, I remember the entire building erupted in cheers. And so we then spent the rest of that night, we like went out and got a bunch of snacks from the 7-Eleven and like Ben & Jerry's ice cream and stayed up until God knows when.
College is like an extended sleepover in a lot of ways.
It really was. With a little bit of schoolwork thrown in there, but
for the most part, schoolwork. It was a lot of work.
Yeah.
They don't tell you that. College is hard. Like,
Yep. So that was fun. And then the next
we walked
day,
out on Lake Michigan the next day.
We went out to Lake Michigan. We like went around campus, and the snowbanks were like twice my size, which I'm not very tall. So
we went to the top of one of the parking garages, and the door was like snowed open with like a 1.5 foot bank covering it. Yeah, it was fun.
It was fun.
And maybe a month earlier was when I did the polar plunge for Invisible Children, and I did it with Lizzie, and you jump into Lake Michigan, there's like chunks of ice floating on it, and like we're watching, and like all the priests are standing on the beach laughing at us. And I was like, you didn't jump.
Do it for the children.
I know, jump in your collar, it's fine. It was fun though. But yeah, that was, I don't know. I've seen some crazy Chicago winters, and that was just next level. That was a lot of fun.
It's been a disappointment ever since. I had my first year was a good one, and then ever since I've been like, that's not that much snow. What are you talking about?
And I feel like our perception now of what's cold and what's a bad winter is totally warped. I'm like, oh, it's like in the 30s today. That's not that bad. Yeah, it's really not. Yeah.
So,
all right.
We wanted to talk about.
I think this is our last question. This mostly came up because KT at Inside 23 Inside number 23 is doing a Harry Potter knit along, which once I get some crap off the needles, I totally want to get in on. We wanted to talk about our Harry Potter houses because it's what all the cool kids are doing. Did you get sorted, or did you kind of pick one?
I'm pretty sure I'm Ravenclaw.
Ravenclaw? Have you taken the new Pottermore quiz?
No.
Stop everything. We're taking the sorting hat quiz. All right, so after a long pause to take the Pottermore quiz, we figured out we are both Gryffindors. I'm still having some feelings about being one. I don't know if it's accurate, but I don't know.
There were some really weird, detailed questions, so.
There were a lot of owl options. I don't remember that many, but.
Did you pick a black cat? Or did you pick an owl?
I think was black cat an option? Yeah, I would have picked that then. There's a distinct black cat motif in this apartment because people keep buying me black cat stuff. I bought that one myself, but the key hook, not so much. All right, so we're going to wrap it up now. One thing we wanted to mention real quick, we are officially going to YarnCon you have the date, right?
Chicago, it's going to be in Chicago on Saturday, April 2nd and April 3rd, which is a Sunday. I think we're going to be there on the 3rd, which is Sunday,
Yes, because we're taking both dyeing classes that
in
day.
the afternoon.
Yeah, and I think there's enough space in there to shop, or
Yep.
should be.
We'll probably get there early.
Right, and it's
Looking
right by
at-
my birthday, so I'm gonna have zero self-control. And so if anybody is interested in meeting up before, after, during, whatever, let us know. We will be there. And
Should be really fun.
yeah, definitely.
Or sign up for the classes too. We got a great deal.
we did that. It was like $20
$20
a class.
and
yeah.
they give you the yarn and the dye, and they show you how to do it. So I think for $20, we're gonna walk away with our own hand-dyed yarn, which is gonna be really exciting.
The first class is with Kool-Aid, and I think the second is with acid dye.
Yes.
So that should be really fun. And I think that's about it. I'll have our Instagram and Ravelry handles at the end, and follow us there. Thanks again for watching and for sitting through an extra episode. I'm looking forward to editing this one and seeing how this turns out.
Yeah, and again, it was great to be here. I'm
Mhm.
happy to have joined for at least one episode. Hopefully, I'll make another guest appearance
Definitely.
sometime soon, and have some finished projects for Allie to update you guys all about
Brag on,
in the next episode for
Yeah.
sure. For sure.
Cool. All right. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time.
Yeah. Cheers.
Bye. We did it.
Woo.
Are you kidding? What? Not now. No. Give me that. Out of your element.
First ever surgery.
Yay! We threw a pumpkin off the parking garage.
Remember my that's what she said joke?
Yes, actually, I think that was the minute we
That
became-
was the minute
that you gotta tell that story.